Hey everyone, this is Eric from Push Your Luck Videos. Now in this very special series, I'll be looking at some of the games that I played at PAX Unplugged 2017. Now recently I was at PAX Unplugged 2017 to take a look at what it's like. I've been to other PAX events and I always notice that there's a board gaming area there, but this time this is an entire convention dedicated to mostly board games. There were some video games there as well, but mostly board games. So I had a chance to go there, take a look at what it's like, and also play some games. So in this very special series, I'll be talking about some of the games that I've played at PAX Unplugged and general first impressions of the games. So this is not a full review per se, but it should give you a pretty good idea of what the games are like as I played them and give you my impressions as well. So let's take a look at the games that I've played. Now I just want to take a moment here to thank my sponsors. Alright, Funagain Games. Push Your Luck Video is an affiliate of Funagain Games. So if you go to funagaingames.com and when you check out after you buy any games there, if you put my code PULV, that's Papa Umbrella Lima Virgo. All right, in the affiliate code section, a little bit of kickback comes back to me as well. So thank you very much if you do that. And also, I'd like to thank Tasty Minstrel Games for sponsorship. Tasty Minstrel now has a podcast and is run by my very good friend Lance, the Undead Viking. So if you want to take a listen to what Tasty Minstrel has to say about the board game industry, about the games they're releasing, do check out their podcast as well. In this video, I'll be taking a first impressions look at The Expanse. Now, The Expanse is a 2017 release by Wizkids and it's by Geoff Engelstein. It plays 2 to 4 players, takes about 45 minutes to 75 minutes to play. Now, if you're not familiar, this is based on the very popular TV series The Expanse. Alright, currently having 2 seasons. I think it's coming out with a 3rd season as well. The Expanse tells a story about how humanity has expanded out into the known space, but because of the expansion, there's a split in affiliation. So there's a Mars alliance where people from Mars who grew up in Mars are wondering what's the big deal about Earth, and people who from Earth feels that they are privileged because they are from the origins of humanity. And then there are the whole group of people that are roaming around in the belts, the asteroid belts. They're doing the mining and stuff like that. So you can think of them as the blue-collar workers. All right. Lastly, there's also the proto-molecule, which is an alien entity or alien organism. All right. So in this game, you can play as one of these factions. All right. You're trying to gain as many points as you can by the end of the game. So whoever has the most points will win the game. And how do you gain points? You gain points by ensuring that you are scoring points in various territories when the scoring cards appears. So this has been touted as very similar to Twilight Struggle. Right, it's like a easier Twilight Struggle, and it is very true because in Twilight Struggle, there are scoring cards, and in Expanse there's also scoring cards as well. So whenever these scoring cards appear, whoever decides to activate them will then be able to choose one of the different areas on the board, the inner planets, the outer planets, and the belt to score. And when they do that, that particular region will score a bit more points. Everyone else will score as well, but not as many as that area that was selected. Lastly, when the game ends, which can happen very abruptly when a 6 scoring card appears, then the entire board will score. And the entire board will score based on the same scoring points. All right, a majority and minority and so on and so forth. Now, so how do you play the game is pretty simple. At the start, depending on which faction you choose, you'll be placing some of your cubes, which are influence points on different planets, as well as your fleet, which are the cardboard chits in the orbitals of these planets. The fleets allow you to put influence cubes on the planets, as well as they also, if you have majority in the orbital, then you also will get a +1 to your influence on the planet as well. There are other interesting thing about Expanse, very similar to Twilight Struggle and not similar to Twilight Struggle, but similar to the coin game series from GMT, is the influence, the initiative track, which will determine who gets first picks of events. So the whole game is played based on the cards that you select. So there's a whole card track at the side of the board where you can decide which card you want to use, and then you can decide whether you use the action points on the card or the event on the card. You can also choose to keep the card so that you can use the event later on during scoring or later on during your turn as well. If you decide to use the action points, then in initiative order, the other players can get to choose to activate the event as well. So all keep the event card. So this is a very interesting part, and it's very similar to Twilight Struggle. The initiative track is very similar to GMT's coin series. So as the game progresses, you're moving cubes around, you're trying to move your fleet around, position yourself so that you get the best, you get a majority when the scoring appears, and then when they appear, then you can score them and win points, and eventually will win the game. So I played this 4 players, and I also played this 2-player. I was wondering whether 2 players will be not as good as 4-player, but surprisingly, well, maybe not surprisingly, because after all, it's Geoff Engelstein who designed the game. For 2 players, it is more deterministic because you can tell very clearly what's happening. You know your opponent is just gunning for you. There's only one of you. You're the only opponent, and so it's easier to see the different plans and different paths. It's a bit more difficult to be sneaky about it. Whereas in a 4-player game, because other players' attention may be looking at other opponents and not looking at you, you can try to sneak in a few wins here and there. And if you're being quiet about it, you can score a lot of points at the end. For my 4-player game, I thought I did quite a bit of scoring at the end, but I think I only lost out by 2 points near the end. And it was a pretty high scoring game. For the 2-player one, I did win. It was also, there's a bit of a kind of luck involved as well, because the card draw will appear, and a 6th card, which will then cause the end game to happen, sometimes will appear when you least expect it. So some players may not like the randomness of the card draw, but by and large, it is, if you like Twilight Struggle, I would definitely recommend the Expanse, because it is definitely a much more lighter version of Twilight Struggle, more easier to understand and digest, and it's not as tricky as Twilight Struggle, where you probably will do best if you can memorize all the cards, and then it will be better for you. But for Expanse, it didn't seem that we needed to memorize all the cards to be good at the game. So I definitely enjoyed my play of the Expanse. If there's one more gripe that I would have about the game, is that the components and artwork are pretty well, because it's space, so it's kind of dark and kind of gloomy and kind of boring in some aspects. The components also feel very lower quality than the usual normal board games, and also the cards themselves, the events or the names of the cards and the context of the card doesn't link at all. There was a card where is based on one character, but it gives Mars or Earth the ability to move any of their fleets to any location. So that doesn't really make much sense if you watch the shows or if you read the story. So but that's my only gripe about the game. So for me right now, as a first impressions, I would say that the Expanse is recommended.